Hi, my name is Walker Daniel, and today I'll be presenting my little I guess video essay on the readings for Map 1. So I guess we'll just first talk about the readings kind of separately and kind of my thoughts there. Um, and kind of give a little summary of my understanding. I feel like is the best way to approach this. And my the first reading we did was the Altman reading. And basically the main ideas of it were that AI is like a vital tool and it will in the future, like next 10 years, he was talking about, it would be used to eliminate the need for jobs, and then create an economy that revolves around a standard income and giving of stocks, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then he would begin to tax labor instead of, or sorry, tax capital instead of labor. And then there was like two dominant forms of wealth in this future economy, in that it'd be land, which is like kind of fixed, and then the AI companies. Um, and kind of his main argument Altman was talking about is that this would be possible, as long as we are prepare for it with legislation changes and law changing to like kind of better receive this new type of I don't know, I guess economy or living, I guess. And he suggested amendment changes, and he talked about how, in theory, it would be popular, and politicians who support this pretty early would have a lot to benefit from this. And I like the idea he was going with. I mean, he had some fair points. I like him talking about taxing capital rather than um, labor, because that's what I was kind of thinking. Like, wouldn't people just kind of hoard all the land and all, and that's where they accumulate all that wealth, seeing as it's a fixed sort of stagnant area. But it's not super believable. A lot of his points were built on theories, and it was all seems kind of abstract. A lot of what he said was like, I don't know, people would probably be more popular if they supported these laws, stuff like that. And also, when he's talking about amendment change, I just don't really find that super realistic, especially since he kind of has the most to gain from it all, seeing as he is one of those AI company owners where he kind of sits on the top. And as he was talking about earlier, the two dominant forms of wealth would be land and AI companies. If he's the top of the AI company, then he'd be getting all the wealth. So that to me was sort of strange. And then one thing that I did really think about is he talked about um, the universal income being a slice. Everybody would have a slice of America, their own slice of America, and that had me thinking about, well, what about immigrants? What about people who move into America? How would that make people feel? Sorry, like how would that shift people's views on immigration? And I couldn't really find anything when doing some research on it, saying like what people might think, seeing as this is kind of like a uniquely Altman's argument, and it's not really, I guess, like talked about much. But I did find that, I mean, obviously immigration is growing increasingly. So in my opinion, I feel like people would be a little less, welcoming to people moving into the United States, seeing as it would basically take money from their pockets, in the sense that they would have less of a income. And I mean, I could be misunderstanding Altman's points here. It just to me seemed sort of a strange, I don't know, overlook on his behalf. And the second article we read was the Hall article, and he talked about how, I guess his first few points were AI is not super scary as it seems. And he kind of talked about how there's like two main ways of depicting AI in the future in media. And the first one is like an AI mastermind that we sort of are all reliant on. And the other one is kind of subvertent, like AI uh, droid robots that kind of do your work for you, kind of like in Wall-E and whatnot. And but he said these aren't super probable. I mean, they are probable, but like it's kind of in the direction we bring it in that would make it more likely, depending on how we approach AI. And then the next kind of thing he talks about is defining intelligence. And this to me was kind of confusing. I didn't really understand exactly what he was talking about, especially with the Chinese chat rooms and the Korean chat rooms. I didn't really know exactly what he was getting at, but from what I understood is that intelligence doesn't always imply understanding. So, like AI, it's artificial intelligence, but it's not actually intelligent because it doesn't really understand the words you're saying. It's kind of just like predicting, I guess, in a sense. And then he kind of talks about how AI isn't dangerous, or we shouldn't be fearful of it being dangerous, mainly for the, it's not like it's human made, so it's not autonomous. It can be turned off. It's defined by humans, so any of its objectives, because it can't create goals, which he talks about later, is uh in the frame of humanity. So it can't really like uh go off from that. And then also it's mainly a tool. It in order to use it, a human has to use it. So I don't know. And I do like this one a lot. I think he makes some great points. Uh Specifically when talking about, oh, sorry, I forgot to mention one important thing is that he said like the only time an AI would be scary if it had biological instincts, which basically means if it had like motives, if it had desires, if it had like I don't know, suffering in a sense. So it would like evolve on its own, and that's when AI could get scary. That's when it become a like horrific, dystopian world where controlled by AI. So I do like this a lot. I'm a bio major myself, so hearing him talk about biological needs and how it kind of affects AI is a big thing. And one thing that he did also mention that I kind of took to heart, and I did my uh, I brought that resource or this source that I found to the next meeting was talking about, hold up, I have it pulled up on my paper right here. Measuring bias in agents in large language models. And they basically found that AI would become biased based on your political and gender affiliations, which is, obviously bad in the sense that you don't want it shifting the facts or telling you what you want to hear. But it's a slippery slope because you don't also want it to be like very objective because then it allows the create whoever created the AI to sort of frame a narrative that everybody would follow because the AI gives the same answer to every or like the same questions. So everybody would sort of start thinking the same. And I don't know. That to me was kind of interesting, and that's um what I sort of researched for the extra little thing for the class. And then the last article, I mean, this one was most definitely the hardest one, the Gortzel argument article. It was 33 pages. I'm dyslexic, so it took me uh very long time to read. It was slow. I couldn't really understand a lot of it. It's very dense, very vocab heavy. But sort of the main point that I got from it is AI development has risks, like obviously, but and he talks about two other guys. Oh, I can't really pronounce their names. I call them Y and O when I was reading them. But he talked about how these guys talk about the risks of AI, and he says, yes, they're there. Or Goetzel says, yes, they're there, but they're not actually like they're not as bad as we make them out to be. And this pessimism about AI is what's going to harm it the most. Um, because if we take these crazy precautions, it's going to slow down the development of AI and kind of restrict the way it can grow. Um, and also he talked about, or sorry, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I do believe AI should be taken precautionary. Um, but I guess he disagrees and he says that it could be stifling. And you know what? He emphasizes on the urgency of AI. He says the future will be shaped by it. And humanity's kind of needs it in order to, further develop, further grow as intelligent. So I don't know. That's kind of what I comprehended from it. Um, I did appreciate that this was an article given to us that was written before like the big AI boom. it kind of shifted the way I thought about AI, I guess, if that makes sense, because I don't know, hearing it talked about as, you know, urgently 10 years before it kind of hit the big, or not 10 years, I guess, what was it, 2015? So five, 6 years before it really got big. I don't know. I had never really thought about AI before then. So it's really interesting to see how other people perceived AI. And this had me thinking about, for my little research bit for the class, I did an argument, or I found an article, sorry, about written by Harvard talking about the rapid growth of AI and how many companies don't even plan like years in advance. They can't plan years in advance regarding AI because it changes so much. They're kind of on a quarterly bias. Uh, like every 4 times a year, they kind of reevaluate everything. I thought that was pretty interesting. Um, Gortzel was very much right on AI developing quickly. Um, so yeah, I thought that was great. And when reading these all, I kind of had they all came together in two main questions to me, that they sort of answered together, hand on hand. And the first one was, what does the future of AI, or what does the future look like for AI, and kind of how humans interact with it? Altman describes obviously a world that's basically taken over, or all the jobs are taken over by AI, or anything we don't really want to do is done by AI. Hall talks about how AI seems seen in two ways, as we mentioned, the super mind and the robot like machines. But he also talks about how it's linked to humans in the sense that it can't really be used without them. And then finally, Gortzel talks about how AI is a necessary tool for humanity in the sense that we won't be able to advance without it. And what this tells me, and this is how it answers the question, is that Hall and Gutzel both agree that AI is a tool and it needs to be used alongside humanity. It shouldn't be doing things for them, but doing it with us. And Altman kind of agrees. He does talk about how AI should do the tasks for us. So I guess we're not really working alongside it, but they all agree that AI should be a tool used as a stepping stool to better humanity, better um, allow us to develop and solve bigger problems like, I don't know, global warming and stuff like that, sort of things that are out of our scope right now. AI can give us that stepping stool and allow us to, achieve those goals. And then the second question that was asked, or that I kind of thought they answered, was, should we be afraid of AI? And I mean, they all universally agree no. Some in more degrees than others. Altman says that as long as their policy changes, I mean, there's nothing to fear. The only thing that'd be scary about AI is receiving it the wrong way and not being prepared. So it's kind of just a waste in a sense. Hull states that because AI is man-made, there shouldn't be anything to fear. The only scary thing would be if AI gained a biological instinct, as he put it, and started creating its own goals, its own motives. Then that could possibly be scary. But even then, it's like hard to say because that's not something we can really understand in a full sense. It's not really something you can fully research. And then finally, Gortzel says that we should not fear AI because fearing AI slows down its progression. And even though there are risks, the reward outweigh them. So they all agree that AI absolutely should not be feared. And the best way to approach it is to be very proactive and start these changes, start preparing for its like big boom, its big or bigger boom, because we're already at a big boom. Let's become more developed and make sure we know how to use these tools. That's kind of what I've gathered through the three articles. That's sort of everything I have to say. Thank you.